Every generation, my uncle picks a favorite niece. I was his favorite. My daughter just became his. I was standing by the dessert table at our annual family reunion when I watched Uncle Richard walk up to my 7-year-old daughter and place a little plastic tiara on her head. He announced that she was the new princess, and every single person went dead silent in the same moment. My aunt froze with a plate in her hand. My mother looked at the floor. My father cleared his throat and walked outside without saying anything. I grabbed my daughter's hand and pulled her behind me because I remembered that tiara, and I remembered the cabin, and I remembered sitting in silence for 2 weeks while an old man watched me and wrote in his notebooks without ever speaking a single word. I came back from that cabin 20 years ago, and I have never been right since, and I was not going to let that happen to her. I found my husband and grabbed his arm. We're leaving immediately. He laughed and shook his head. You're being completely insane. Richard is harmless. He just likes spending time with family. I pulled harder. I don't care. We're going right now. He crossed his arms. Your parents already agreed to let her stay at his cabin for 2 weeks this summer. It's already planned. I grabbed his collar. That is never going to happen. I need you to hear me. He pulled away from me. You're overreacting to something that happened decades ago. I found my father smoking on the porch and grabbed his shoulders with both hands. Please, I'm begging you, don't let this happen to her. He put out his cigarette without looking at me. Richard requested her early this year. He's picking her up tomorrow morning before we drive home. It's already done. I felt the ground tilt under me. Where is the cabin? Tell me where it is. He shook his head slowly and wouldn't meet my eyes. You're being hysterical. I grabbed his shirt with both fists. I will call the police right now and tell them everything. He peeled my fingers off one by one. You were blindfolded in the car every time. Richard funds everything this family has. That's how it works. I stayed up all night in my daughter's room, and in the morning I watched Richard's car pull up the driveway. I grabbed my daughter and ran out the back door and drove 4 hours home without stopping, and I thought I was safe. My husband called me screaming that I had embarrassed him in front of the whole family. My father left a voicemail saying Richard was very disappointed. 3 days later, I came home from work and my daughter was gone, and there was a note from my mother on the kitchen counter in her perfect handwriting. Richard picked her up this morning. Don't worry, she'll be back in 2 weeks, just like everyone else. I called every former favorite I could find in old family photos. The first one hung up the second she heard why I was calling. The second one blocked my number before I could finish a sentence. I finally reached my cousin, the favorite before me, and she picked up on the 6th ring with a voice like she hadn't spoken in months. Please, I need to know where the cabin is. My daughter is there right now. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up, and then she whispered an address. What you find will be worse than anything you remember. I drove through the night for 9 hours. The cabin was at the end of a dirt road that didn't show up on any map. I parked in the trees and broke in through a back window while the house was dark. I found a room I had never seen before. A room with notebooks lining every wall, organized by decade going back to 1952. The handwriting changed as the notebooks got older. Richard's father had written some. His grandfather had written others. This had been happening for almost a century. I pulled down my great-aunt's notebook from 1962 and flipped to the last page. A single date was written under the word end, 1987. My great-aunt died in 1987. I grabbed my cousin's notebook from the shelf. The last page said 3 days from now. I found my own notebook and opened it to the last page. The date under the word end was 14 months from now. I heard my daughter's voice somewhere deeper in the cabin and I ran toward it. I found her standing in a hallway in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, and behind her was Uncle Richard with his eyes rolled back so far I could only see white. He was holding a fresh notebook with my daughter's name on the cover and a pen in his other hand. He hadn't written anything yet. The pages were blank. I had time. I took one step toward her, and then his mouth opened and he started speaking in a flat voice that sounded like it was coming from somewhere far away, reciting my daughter's full name and then the word end and then a month. I screamed and lunged forward and clamped my hands over my daughter's ears, but I couldn't cover my own, and he finished the date before I could push past him. My daughter squirmed against my chest. Mommy, what's happening? Why is the man talking like that? I ran for the front door and didn't stop until we reached the car. My daughter is 16 now, and while I'm haunted by what Uncle Richard said was her end date, mine has passed and my cousin's has passed, and we are both still here. I may have broken a curse or I may have done nothing, but I'm terrified I've messed things up and the worst is yet to come.